The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and lavender, as Mark Jensen pulled into the entrance of the sprawling horse sanctuary. It had been years, decades, really, since Mark had last been here, but the memories came flooding back as soon as he stepped out of his truck. The sounds of nickering horses, the earthy smell of hay, and the distant hum of wind through the trees felt like stepping into a time capsule of his youth. Mark had spent his teenage summers working on this ranch, helping rehabilitate wild Mustangs. One horse, in particular, had stolen his heart, a spirited black Mustang named Thunder. Back then, Thunder was a feisty colt with a stubborn streak a mile wide. But Mark saw something special in him, a spark that set him apart from the others. The two had formed an unbreakable bond, but life had taken Mark away from the ranch, and he hadn't seen Thunder since the day the horse was released back into the wild nearly 20 years ago. Now, Mark was back, older and a little more worn by life, but with the same love for these magnificent creatures. He had heard about the sanctuary and its efforts to care for Mustangs rescued from neglect or injury. What he didn't expect was to find himself face to face with a ghost from his past. The sanctuary's owner, a kind woman named Susan, greeted Mark warmly and gave him a tour of the grounds. Dozens of Mustangs roamed the expansive pastures, their coats gleaming in the fading sunlight. As they walked, Mark couldn't help but ask, "Have you ever taken in any Mustangs that were previously released into the wild?" Susan nodded. "Oh, plenty. Some come back after being injured, or when their herds can no longer support them." "Why do you ask?" Mark hesitated. "I used to work with a Mustang here. His name was Thunder. I've always wondered what happened to him." Susan smiled. "We've had a few black Mustangs over the years. Let's take a look in the north pasture. There's one there who's been with us for about 5 years. He's different." Mark's heart raced as they approached the pasture. A group of horses grazed peacefully, but one stood apart. He was a striking black stallion, his coat still gleaming like polished obsidian despite his age. Mark's breath caught in his throat. Could it really be him? As they drew closer, the stallion's ears flicked toward them. He lifted his head, his dark eyes locking onto Mark. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The horse's posture stiffened, his nostrils flaring as he took a cautious step forward. Mark felt his chest tighten. "Thunder," he whispered, barely audible. The stallion's reaction was immediate. He let out a low nicker, his head bobbing as if in acknowledgement. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, Thunder trotted toward the fence, his movements graceful despite his years. Mark stepped closer, his hands trembling as he reached out. Thunder's muzzle brushed against Mark's palm, and the connection was instant. The memories of their time together came flooding back. Long days spent training, running together in the open fields, and quiet moments where no words were needed. Thunder's eyes seemed to say what words could not, a silent recognition that transcended the years they had spent apart. Susan watched the scene unfold with tears in her eyes. "I've never seen him react like that to anyone," she said softly. "He's always been a bit standoffish, even with me." Mark couldn't speak. He rested his forehead against Thunder's, his voice breaking as he said, "I'm so sorry I left you. I never stopped thinking about you." Thunder let out a soft whinny, as if forgiving him. Over the next few days, Mark visited the sanctuary every morning and evening, spending hours with Thunder. They fell back into old routines as if no time had passed. Mark would lead Thunder through gentle exercises, brush his coat until it gleamed, and sit with him under the shade of a large oak tree, simply enjoying each other's presence. One afternoon, as Mark was preparing to leave, a small group of visitors arrived at the sanctuary. Among them was a young boy named Liam, who had been struggling with confidence after a serious illness. Susan asked if Mark would introduce Thunder to the group. Mark hesitated, unsure how Thunder would react to strangers. But as soon as Liam approached the fence, Thunder walked over, his movements slow and deliberate. The boy reached out timidly, and Thunder lowered his head, letting Liam stroke his muzzle. Liam's face lit up with a smile, and for the first time in months, he laughed. His parents watched in awe as Thunder seemed to instinctively know how to put the boy at ease, nuzzling him gently and even lowering himself slightly so Liam could reach him better. Susan leaned over to Mark. I told you he was different, she said with a smile. Mark decided to stay at the sanctuary for good, volunteering his time to care for the Mustangs and help others like Liam experience the healing power of these incredible animals. Thunder became a star at the sanctuary, his gentle nature and special bond with Mark drawing visitors from far and wide. As Mark stood in the pasture one evening, watching Thunder graze under the setting sun, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had taken them on separate paths, but fate had brought them back together. Their bond, forged in youth and tested by time, was unbreakable. You've always been special, Thunder, Mark said softly, and now the whole world knows it too. This story of Thunder and Mark is a testament to the enduring power of love and connection. No matter how much time passes or how far we drift, the bonds we form with those we care about have the power to bring us back together. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of extraordinary bonds and second chances.